It's scary, to put a face to this information. I'm at a loss for words, basically, because the only way I can describe what's happening is a spider web. And so there are secret police societies. One thing we stumbled across in our research is fraternal orders and secret societies. And I've learned about Freemasonry. It says Dior Sunset Foundation. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, what's Dior Sunset Foundation? They work with kids, inner city kids. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. They are giving the coordinates of that parcel and telling people to cross through. This actual parcel is owned by Faheem Muhammad. That is P Diddy's head of security. Both Michael Amir Williams and Faheem Muhammad were on trial testifying about Michael Jackson's death. They were both there when he died. What we see is a picture of Barack Obama with Minister Farrakhan, and that photo was hidden for a long time. The notorious B.I.G. was executed by a Nation of Islam hitman hired by Suge Knight, and LA cops covered up the crime.
That's Kanye and Kim. They're all connected. They're all part of the society. They're all friends.
Yes, they're all in some society that you and I are not in. We're looking, and if you're a criminal and you're doing this in our country, you should be very afraid.
Oh, this video is about to be suppressed like never before. That's why I'm asking you to do these 3 little things. Number 1, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already. Number 2, please tap the like button and leave a comment below. And number 3, please share this video with your friends, peers, and family. And now, let's get back to the podcast. Okay, so let me properly introduce you, Melissa. Melissa O'Connor, also known as Melissa in California, is a citizen journalist. She was featured on Tucker Carlson Tonight, interviewed by Jesse Waters, Lawrence Jones, and other journalists. Mrs. O'Connor fights the evil with her skills of bringing it to light. Melissa had a fierce fight against the mandates during the pandemic, which she felt were unconstitutional. At this moment, Melissa O'Connor digs deep into an infamous P Diddy and his whole case. She has uncovered a lot of before unknown information about Sean Combs, and we're here to bring a light to it. Melissa is a woman of God. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much.
Let me set the stage. So I'm 36 years old. I'm from Lithuania, and I'm a kid of the 90s. My childhood was in the 90s and early 2000s. I always knew who P Diddy was, but I never understood why he was so famous, right? I have never listened to his songs, and I want to say I could name only a few of them. But I always knew that he's a very powerful man, and he's a very strong human being in Hollywood and the music industry. Mm-hmm. And once everything that is going on right here appeared on the stage with all the case allegations and everything that we saw in the last, I want to say, 6 to 8 months especially, then we find out that this guy was literally a monster, right? Mm-hmm. So I would like today with you to dive into his case. And I specifically, on purpose, I did not watch did not read your Substack. I did not read the Twitter post that you have, and you have multiple posts about the P Diddy. So I would like for me to hear it for the first time, and I believe a lot of audience will hear it for the first time as well. How do you feel about that?
Okay, that sounds great. I just need to take a deep breath. Whew. It's very what feels like sensitive information. And everything I say can be found through public record. Mm-hmm. It is not warranted, but it is believed to be credible. Mm-hmm. So I am, a self-described citizen journalist now, and it's scary, to put a face to this information.
Really?
Yes. So I appreciate how calm you are about it. But yeah, as you know, you reached out to me a few weeks ago, and I said,
I want to say a few months ago.
Okay.
We've been going back and forth. Yeah.
And I am just so grateful for the opportunity, and I appreciate it. And you've interviewed a lot of people I respect, and you have great quality work.
Thank you.
But as you remember, I said, I'm not talking about this
Mm-hmm.
if Trump doesn't get elected.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was last week, and here we are. But if I rewind, a similar situation started once I started stumbling across this information. And so how it all began is Cory Gautereax, who you interviewed a few months ago. So everybody should check out that interview so you get a broader picture of like what's going on at the San Diego-Mexico border. So Cory has been collecting information down there and intelligence, and now he's basically become like a repository for intel and throughout, various countries because he lives there. He grew up there. And so he's able to see with his own eyes what's going on. He's not coming in for a visit. I do not live at the border, but I live in San Diego County. So my perspective is this is happening in my community still. And basically what led me to this point is some information that Cory sent me, which was a screenshot of a property, a parcel that's down on the U.S.-Mexico border. And I am very curious. So my curiosity gets me into trouble. And that's why we're sitting here today, because I want answers. And where I live, like what I've seen over the last few years, is what I'm living and experiencing is not being reported on. And so that tells me that our local San Diego media is either captured, they're terrified, or they're corrupt as hell. And I think it's probably a little bit of all three. And there are still some great journalists in our community. So like we have OAN here. So, I don't want to make a blanket statement disparaging like all the great work that some of our local reporters are doing. But I feel that the level of journalism that is required right now, like everybody needs to dial it up way more intense and go way deeper than what we're doing. Because even independent journalists like me who are trying to find answers and putting it out there, we're still only I feel like we're still only able to get to the surface because of how hidden all of this is. And it's a huge network. So I guess like where should we even begin?
The resource that you have is not even in comparison to what the other journalists have. I mean, the TV channels, the local newspapers, and etc.
Yeah.
But you remember that post of Elon Musk with this meme? Look at me now. I'm the media now, and you are the media now. CNN is firing their anchors, right? Top 3, top 5 anchors.
Yes.
I wonder why. No one's watching this BS.
I love that you brought that up. I think it's because they could possibly be involved in criminal activity.
Really?
So pay attention to everybody who is stepping down right now. It's not a coincidence.
You can't see it, but I got shivers right now. Even if anchors are involved in this, who's not? All the Hollywood is involved?
Yeah, so I would say, I'm at a loss for words, basically, because the only way I can describe what's happening is a spider web. But it's like a spider web on a sphere. Like, it's so dimensional. The level of corruption that has been taken over at a global scale is hard to comprehend. But we are living in the time where it's being revealed. It's coming out super slow, but I think that's God's grace on our minds, our hearts, and our souls, because he knows that we may not be able to handle all of it at once. So it is like a slow drip. But what we found, basically, so Cory sends me this screenshot, and if I could direct everybody to my Twitter account, and so you can follow along with all this information. It's broken down, and my handle is Melissa_in California.
Link is in the description below.
Okay, perfect. And then I also have put all this in my Substack, which you referenced, and I've condensed it in an article form, and it may take you 3 days to go through. If you want
3 days?
If you want to sit down with a coffee and do like 15 minutes at a time, because it's deep and it's heavy, and it still is only scratching the surface. So enough of the plug. I'll get into it
once again.
Okay, so let's rewind back to June of 2024. Cory sends me a screenshot through a hunting app that he uses called OnX. And basically, just so people understand the context, if you go hunting, and you're moving about through land, you can reference like a parcel map to see who owns it and see if you're on like maybe open territory. I'm not a hunter, so I don't know the correct verbiage here, or if you're on private land. And so this is how he obtained this screenshot. And so he sends me a border parcel that's in the Boulevard Jacumba area, which is east of downtown San Diego. And it says Dior Sunset Foundation. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, what's Dior Sunset Foundation? And so I start looking into this foundation, and they're out of Los Angeles County, like Compton area. And they work with kids, like inner city kids. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So an organization from LA owns border property. That's a little random to me, but what do I know? And so as I'm looking into this foundation, somehow I run across a CBS 8 news article from a few months prior where our local San Diego media reported that this actual parcel is owned by Faheem Muhammad. And we come to find out, which Cory shared on your podcast, and that clip has gone viral, which is really cool to see how it resonated with people. But we see in that newscast that is P Diddy's head of security. And he's featured in the Rodney Jones lawsuit as someone who can make people and problems disappear. And all of this information, I will continue to say, is in my Twitter thread, and it is on public record. So to me, it's a little red flag that people working with kids from Los Angeles County owns border property, because it feels very detached. Mm-hmm. It's super far away. You're out in the desert. You've stood on that property, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you've actually been on the property we're discussing. And so did Cory tell you this is where the cartels are directing people to cross illegally? Mm-hmm. Okay. So you saw that our border fence ends at the boulders.
Yes.
And there's a gap where you can just crawl through.
Yes.
Like you're on a hike, right? No big deal. Okay, so...
Or you can jump over the fence from one boulder to another.
Oh, yeah. It's like a very easy...
Very easy.
Yes. And then I think, did Cory also say on your podcast that these coordinates... He's in global chats where he's following information, and globally, in at least 2 different countries he's identified, they are giving the coordinates of that parcel and telling people to cross through at that point. Okay, so again, you have Foundation who owns this based on San Diego property tax records. The media told us that Faheem Muhammad bought his teenage son some property for his birthday, but Faheem is nowhere on any public documents that I could find that would legally hold up. So I could give CBS 8 News benefit of the doubt, okay, you are just sharing what seems like a feel-good story, or you've been told to misdirect people. But in all the reports on this clip, even I think Good Morning America, the story went national, with Faheem as a feel-good story where he buys his son land, and they are saying they basically have pulled it from something P Diddy shared in his stories, where he's sharing that Faheem did this.
Why did they report this in the first place? Was this a breaking news? No one knows who Faheem is.
Yeah, not many. I don't think many people know who Faheem is until this year. Yeah. And we'll discuss more on him. Yeah, so that to me is my question. At every point that I start researching to find information, the evidence brings up so many more questions. And then it just the story just exploded into all these different directions. So, I mean, I guess what lane would you like to cover? Should we highlight?
Let's start from the beginning. So, P Diddy is a successful businessman, a rap artist, and a producer. But in this year, 2024, in April, right, his two homes were raided in Miami and in Los Angeles. Why?
Allegedly, P. Diddy is said to have a network larger than Jeffrey Epstein's. So we still haven't learned the full truth on Epstein, though I know a lot of people have done research on it. I did years ago. And I think we're going to see those full lists, but they're still being concealed from us for some reason. And if P. Diddy had a network, and we have a lot of his accusers are now speaking out and finding the courage to file lawsuits, it sounds like he is allegedly responsible for unthinkable acts against men, women, and children. And it also appears that, like, I just listened to an interview with Suge Knight.
Suge Knight, yeah.
Yeah. So he basically has said that P. Diddy could have been an informant, and he's like, a lower level fall guy.
So it's basically Epstein 2.0.
Yes.
CIA asset that brings people in to have those crazy parties with some perversion in there. He's filming everything, and then he can blackmail. Well,
yeah.
His masters can blackmail everyone that were in those parties.
Right, like the Hugh Hefner Playboy Mansion honeypot operation. I think it's similar. And I think what people need to understand is this has been going on for a long time.
So it started with Hugh Hefner back in the 60s?
Yes, but I think very few people even have knowledge of how long this has been going on.
Give me an example. Like, what do people still don't even realize? They don't comprehend how bad it is.
Well, one thing we stumbled across in our research is fraternal orders and secret societies. And I've learned about like Freemasonry or various fraternities and sororities, but I never actually saw them like overlap in anything I personally was looking into, if that makes sense. And so basically it is secrecy. Like there are all of these secret mafias in various different groups. And that's very ambiguous. But when we started looking into the Dior Sunset Foundation, the tax records through San Diego Property Tax Records, their address goes back to Sunset Masonic Lodge in Long Beach. And I just was in the area over this past weekend and drove by it because I've been looking at it on a map, but I drove by it and then I had to go to Palos Verdes, and I drove through the port at San Pedro, which is the port at Long Beach and the port of Los Angeles combined. It's a whole complex. There are more shipping containers than you could ever like comprehend. Like I filmed videos of it, and it was like 4 straight minutes in the car of just containers and cranes. It's the largest port in the Western Hemisphere. It does, I don't have my notes, I don't have it pulled up, but billions of dollars worth of revenue. And what's strange is that it's governed by a committee of volunteers that are chosen by the city. And that's a whole nother, I think, something that needs to be looked into and explored. But basically, this property at our border is tied to a Masonic lodge in Long Beach.
What did you find out with and let's talk about the whole web that you mentioned before. The web, I want to say not even 3D, but 4D, maybe 5-dimensional, right?
Yes, exactly.
Let's go through this.
Okay. So let's dive into Faheem. Who is Faheem, and why does he own land at the San Diego, Mexico border, or why are they telling us he does? Well, he, would you know, was also the head of security, not only for P Diddy, but Michael Jackson.
It's just a coincidence.
It's total coincidence. So you guys can dig into that. And he has a friend named Michael Amir. And this Michael Amir Williams, his name kept coming up when I was researching Faheem. And that's because they've been doing business together for years and years. And Michael Amir Williams also worked as Michael Jackson's like chief of staff, or he was hired to organize his, I believe, music library. Found something that says organize his library. I'm assuming it's his music catalog. They own a business called Oasis Investment Partners based out of LA and Chicago. And I have all this on my thread where you can see the various businesses and offices. Both Michael Amir Williams and Faheem Muhammad were on trial testifying about Michael Jackson's death. They were both there when he died. And
not died, he was killed. It's proven, right?
My belief is Michael Jackson was framed and disparaged and killed. Yes. And I think a lot of us like went through a time where we stopped listening to his music. They did a very great job painting Michael Jackson a certain way. And all of this seems to go back to his death, which is even more strange to me. Like, I'm learning about this network of people that have been up in everybody's business for decades. So we start looking into like property records and parcel numbers, and Faheem Muhammad and Michael Amir have businesses all over the place. Multiple businesses in California, multiple in Chicago. And this is where I learned about something that I never knew about in my investigation, which is the Nation of Islam. And are you familiar
Yes,
with him?
MLK.
He, to my knowledge, was not involved in the Nation of Islam.
Was not. Okay.
So, and again, all of these things, it could be like misleading. I think it's very hard to figure out what the truth is, because even what we have access to could still be information that leads us astray, if that makes sense.
So Nation of Islam was a kind of, I want to say, on its pinnacle in the 60s with Muhammad, right? Muhammad Ali. Right now, I didn't even know that Nation of Islam still exists and they do something. So for the audience, maybe that are just 20-year-olds, what's a Nation of Islam? What it is?
Yeah, so I'll break it down because I just learned about it this year. So I had heard that phrase and I had heard the name Louis Farrakhan, but I knew nothing. And as I began to research, I learned that Faheem Muhammad is a member, or so some people call it a cult, some people call it a like fraction of Islam, but they, on thefinalcall.com, that's like their newsletter, and in their speeches and in their media, they're very forthright with what their mission is, and they think the white race is evil, and they are openly black separatists, and they are building their nation and their kingdom, and they're headquartered in Chicago, and they say their nation will never fall again, which makes me think like they want out with the old and in with the new. So
unburdened by what has been.
Yes, unburdened by, yes. That's a whole nother, Kamala was in a sorority, and the moderator of the debate was her sorority sister. That's a whole nother.
Really? I haven't heard that.
I know, it's wild. There's just so much to look into.
Coincidence.
Yes.
Allegedly.
Yes, it's such a coincidence. So what was kind of crazy is seeing P Diddy and all these rappers crossover and involvement with the Nation of Islam. And the most alarming thing to me is that I haven't heard about it or learned about it. And again, I mean, I believe there's many reasons for that. There's a lot going on. There's so much that all of us have been distracted from, and that's how whoever they is, that's how they want it. They want us distracted and not reading and not researching and look over here. Don't learn to think for yourself or find your own, information. But what was so alarming is seeing the source of like racism and hatred and vitriol come from this organization, and no one is saying it's like a national threat to our security. Yeah, and it's not something that you would have ever heard in conversation. Like maybe it's, how you know about things like, oh yeah, I've kind of heard a little bit about that, or I heard a few news reports, and I've just been living under a rock. I don't know. How many people listening do you know the ins and outs of this religious sect? But I was alarmed that they very openly say we are building our kingdom. It's only for Black people who live in America. So it's not for individuals that are Islamic in other countries.
Yeah, not for all the Muslims. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's only for Black Americans, and no one else is invited. And, also what I've seen in this investigation is like, if you own the land, you own the country. And sorry to go off on a tangent here, but everybody needs to start reverse searching these parcels and weird ownership. It unlocks some of the craziest rabbit holes, and it'll just start as this did with looking up one parcel in public records, and this whole story became unleashed, and it's led us to other parcels next to it on the border, which are also questionable.
Like what?
Well, so looking around, right, it would be, if you're looking at a map, it's to the left, which would be west of I call it the Diddy Faheem Sunset Dior parcel, because they're all overlapped. It's about 4,000 acres of land that is owned by a company called Empire 2 LLC. And that's the Hagen family, which is like a California empire. And
Why would they own that? So this land is basically a desert, a wilderness. Nothing to do there at all. Once you see it, it's like, what should I do with this land? They have a purpose.
Yeah, right now they're working on a huge solar project.
Sure.
Through the county of San Diego.
Of course.
Starlight Solar. Definitely, I'm looking into that more and trying to find more information. The Hagens are the owners of the Empire Polo Fields, which is Coachella.
Interesting. Okay.
They also at one time were responsible for some of the largest ownership, I believe, of commercial real estate property in the state of California. And Hagen Sr. was appointed by the governor in, it was 1983 for some projects in Tahoe. So we're looking into that. But if you follow Trump and you actually don't listen to what the media says about him, and that he is the most epic troller of all time. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Okay.
With some kind of a specific example?
Yeah. When he came to California and had his rally on the Coachella fields, I believe he was trolling the Hagens.
What did he say?
He came to say, it's like a flex, I think, for him. I know what's going on here, and I'm not afraid to come to this foreign occupied territory, which I believe our state is. Mm-hmm. I think we are
just know
but
that
not
we
for
know.
long,
Mm-hmm.
but we know exactly. And what that is to be determined. But everything is just very strange right now.
So let's get back to this parcels near by the border. So P Diddy's head of security owns one. So this guy owns another one, a parcel. What about the other? Maybe someone's very interesting as well as the owners, Chinese.
We have found, some other properties we found do connect to San Bernardino County and some Chinese storefronts and some daycares. And I don't know if I was supposed to tell you that, so I'll just stop right there. But you know what? We're looking, and if you're a criminal and you're doing this in our country, you should be very afraid. And there are just normal citizens who are tired of people being here and doing horrible things to people, and you're going to be reported. And
you can find all that information just on that app on X?
Yeah, or
it's
just
a public info.
Google. I mean, yeah, we've used a number of different like open research tools, which are free and public records. Like once you get a parcel number, you can put that in your county records and you can pull deeds. You can see ownership history. If you can link up with a real estate agent, they can be looking up information on MLS. You can reverse search property tax records. There's all kinds of things you can do. And then the State of California Business Registry, you can get all the LLCs that are associated. And so what we find when we look into these people is a lot of them have trucking companies. So you own border land. You also have a trucking company. Some have their pilot's license. So movement. That's like all I see is movement. What are you moving?
Yes. Who?
Who and what and why? Okay, so going back to Faheem, I just want to point some of these things out so people can see with their own eyes. Like on his LinkedIn, it says he worked for Combs Enterprises. His friend, Michael Amir Williams, who I mentioned he's been doing business with, has a sister, and her name is Mecca. And at the time of me putting together my Substack, like her Instagram still had lots of information up about P Diddy on it, where she's been to his parties. There's an interview I share where she says she's traveled the world with him, like working with him. And you see her at the various parties. I mean, just having a good time. There's nothing wrong with posting yourself at a party with someone. But the fact that I bring that up because we realized she also worked with him. And then she shared a post where she thanked the minister, Louis Farrakhan, for the introduction to Michael Jackson's family. And that's the bridge where we learn this is a whole network.
But what did Michael Jackson have in common with the Nation of Islam?
I think they wanted to control him. I don't know that he had anything in common with them. And so what I'm seeing is that it seemed like this group of people kind of infiltrated his life. And there's an LA Times article saying this. Mm-hmm. These are not my words. That in his final days, they infiltrated his life. And I think it's because he represented good, actually. And he knew what was going on. And typically it was the people that knew what was going on and did not participate that are no longer with us.
Sadly. Yeah.
Sadly. It's so sad. Yeah.
Let's continue.
Yeah. Okay. So I mentioned Mecca and overlapping with P Diddy. And then one thing that she shared that was kind of like an aha moment for me is when she reposted something P Diddy shared, and it was from like the 4th of July week, 2020. And it's a video of basically announcing Louis Farrakhan's speech he was going to have, and it was going to be published on Revolt Network, which is P Diddy's network at the time. And if you listen, like, it's fanning the flame of racism and division. And it broke my heart because I feel that I And I had a Black Lives Matter sign in my yard in 2020. Like I fell for it, but I genuinely do have a heart for unity and, you know, like I love all people. I consider myself open-minded. And so never had a racist bone in my body. So I would just want to state that before I make this statement. It grieved me. Would love, it's in my Substack. If you find this video that P Diddy shared in the height of chaos and trauma of our nation, and they're basically just fanning the flames of racism and division and not reconciliation or forgiveness or a solution or a path to move forward. But Farrakhan basically says, like, why do you want to be a part of a nation that's coming to an end? Like, why are you saying our nation's coming to an end?
And he said that in 2020.
Yes. So to me, that was a part of a larger plan. I mean, there were so many things going on there, and they're all happening simultaneously, but that was that one line of chaos and trauma, and that was a part of their plan, is to just turn us upside down. And some of it worked. Like, a lot of us still have family members and friends we haven't reconnected with because of these divides that we've been a victim of. But to me, it made me feel like I had located a source for a lot of this. Mm-hmm. It's pretty fascinating.
Can you imagine the same thing happening and saying that we have to be divided from the blacks? Mm-hmm. We, the white people, should have our own nation?
Thank you.
That would be madness, right?
Exactly.
It's unthinkable.
And that, I'm so glad you said it, so I didn't have to. That was my aha moment, to say the media isn't perpetuating this when, I could never get away with saying what Farrakhan has said. And you don't hear like about investigations into it, at least current. The FBI in the 30s did like investigate one of their prophet leaders. But it's upside down. Everything's backwards and doesn't make sense.
Rules are for thee, but not for me.
Yeah. I
can do whatever I want.
Yeah. You can say these horrible things and perpetuate racism, but you're calling me a white national because I just am existing and I support my country, not the corrupt government, but I support
because you voted for
longevity.
A Nazi. You voted for a Nazi, for Hitler, for fascist. But I was surprised. So he's a Nazi, fascist, and Hitler, right? Literally, as they were saying. And at the same time, the second day after the election, Kamala is saying that they're about to give the power to Donald Trump. So basically, to give power back to Hitler, Nazi, and fascist, right? Safely and securely. What are you saying? So he's a Hitler. Would you ever do that to a real Hitler, to a real Nazi? Let's continue with the web.
We found, when I was mentioning Mecca, we found that Mecca Williams, Michael Muir Williams, her brother, and Faheem Muhammad all own a studio, like a production studio. And it's called NFA Studios, and that stands for Never Fall Again. So that's referring to their nation that they never want to see fall away. And the reason I think all that is relevant is that it just ties them together. It shows like they've been working in lockstep for years and they're overlapping with these powerful, influential people. So it just makes me think they're all in cahoots. To what degree, I have no idea. I believe it's being investigated as we speak. And then like from their studio, you can hear their own words. They even have an episode where they go down to the border property that we're talking about, and you see them just out there enjoying a day of recreation. And then you see, like I shared this on my Substack, a picture of Faheem wearing a shirt that says Black is God, and he has the Nation of Islam star and moon. And so like here's a picture from like an old, what would you call this? Like a newspaper, an archived image from the Nation of Islam newspaper called Muhammad Speaks. And you mentioned MLK, but here it says, it's a picture of MLK and it says he wants white brotherhood. And then it shows their prophet or their leader, Faheem Muhammad, and it says wants black brotherhood. And then it says the messenger of Allah warns, accept your own or perish. So it's like they are advocating for one race in power, and they're gonna like excommunicate their brother MLK from the group because he actually wants unity, and they say you can't achieve unity with white people.
And he was a Christian.
Yes.
I think
there's a whole scandal with MLK. I haven't done that deep dive, so I don't know to what extent he was faithful to his role as a pastor. I'll just put that in. But
I've heard that he was very promiscuous. He lived a very interesting life, and he had lots of women.
That's what I've heard as well.
So you can be a Christian. You can be a Christian,
Yes.
obviously, but and sleeping with lots of women. But you can be a pastor. So
Right.
he had his sermons right from the pulpit. You can't do that.
Yeah, it sounded like he lived a double life. So anybody who's doing that, I'm like, I don't know if you should be as iconic as history has
And
painted
it goes
you.
to, and it's touches the surface only now in 2020. 2020s, right? That happened 60 years ago. So for the 60 years, 2 to 3 generations were taught that he was a hero. He was this amazing human being with a pastor, Christian, etc. But now we find out that he was promiscuous. He had lots of women. He had this, and that, and that wasn't his only vice, as far as I know.
Yeah, and I think most of history is like that. It's so hard to figure out like what actually happened.
I like this phrase. If they are lying us about the news, can you imagine what they are lying us about the history?
Yes. Oh, I think, lies everywhere. So it's just a waste of time to even like argue about things with people because I think none of us know. It's kind of sad. And I think that'll change before you and I leave this earth. I am convinced of it. Oh, yeah.
I would love to know the true history of
Me
the
too.
world.
Oh my gosh, me too. And like humanity. Like what's their beef with us? They talk about us like we're low-level cattle and
Basically apes.
they
evolved.
tell you that you've come from an animal. It's like, no, we were designed by our creator fearfully and wonderfully. And I think we all have superpowers we don't know about.
I like how they can say that 100 million years ago was this. How do you know 100 million years ago?
Where were based on what?
Based on what? Or I always have this question like, so we know what's in the core of the earth, right? It's magma, it's something very hot. How? How did you find that out?
You melt before you get there.
Yeah. How did you find that out? It's impossible. You can't look through it. You can't look at with the telescope like you're watching. You're doing this by watching into the space and watching all those planets, right? How do you know what's inside of our planet?
Yeah, you're getting into dangerous territory because you're starting to ask questions.
Conspiracy theories.
Yes.
Block the video. Let's continue.
Being curious. Okay, so one thing in our investigation that I did want to highlight that isn't making a lot of sense to me is how this ties back to the Middle East. And I don't really understand why. So what we see is a picture of Barack Obama with Minister Farrakhan. And that was from 2005, like before he ran. And that photo was hidden for a long time. And then, a lot of people say that he was an illegitimate president because he wasn't even born here. But it is looking that way. Like, these people play the long game. This evil plays the long game and is very patient. So this isn't like this isn't even like a 30-year plan. It's, I think, like a 100-year plan or more.
What communists do. Communists always plan for a century minimum.
Yes.
What the Chinese do right now.
So slow.
They don't care
patient.
what's happening right now. They care what will happen in 50 years. How they will dominate the world.
Yes. And Americans, we live in such a popcorn society, like instant gratification, instant everything, that we don't even realize that doesn't even occur to us. Like that, oh, it would be slow and methodical and planned out, or propaganda, for example. If propaganda is good and well done, how do you even know you're not under the influence of it?
That's a good point.
Yes. It's like, how could you determine that? It's an art of war. And if you look at everything like, moves and counter moves, all this makes a little more sense. So that would just be my question is like, why does this tie to the Middle East? And when we look at like Masonic orders, and even like there's some evidence that points to Minister Farrakhan could have been a Freemason. And I'm mentioning these groups, not everyone in these groups is like corrupted or bad. Just like, I went to a church where sadly there was a scandal and they dealt with that, and that person is in jail. And you see this everywhere. So you could have horrible people in any organization, it could be, and it still could be a good organization and have a bad apple. So I just want to put that out there. I'm not here to disparage any group or sect of any kind. But just going back to like the Freemasons, if you look at their origins and their history, it also ties back to the Middle East, and then Islam. And also I think so many of these groups have been infiltrated and hijacked. So you have like wonderful people with incredible history, and then you have horrible people come in and do nefarious activity, and then you have a lot of people like hating on one group because of these few bad apples, and they want that too. Does that make sense?
Like we used to think that all Arabs are terrorists.
Yes, and that's not true.
It's
Exactly.
not true.
And they want us to believe that. Like that was all 9/11. They wanted to convince us these people are horrible, and so we want you to get behind a war with them. When like I believe that was perpetrated by members of our own government.
Oh, God forbid if we ever know the truth about the 9/11.
Yes. Okay, Donald Trump, if you're listening, I have a few requests. I want to see the P Diddy list, the Epstein list. I want to know the truth of 9/11, the truth of the JFK assassination, and you got to come out with the truth on Operation Warp Speed ASAP. If you could do that January 21st.
There's no way you're going to find out the whole truth about the 9/11 in this century. It happened 23 years ago only.
Oh, so I disagree.
All these people you disagree? You think it can come out?
Absolutely.
Really?
That's in our future.
You're very hopeful. I like your positivity.
I'm here to hope for all these things. I mean, if you think like we're living in a time where this, whatever P Diddy allegedly was a part of, for decades, and it's coming out now, can you imagine what else is in our future? Like if they were still in control fully, we would not know any of this. It would still be hidden in the darkness.
Yeah, something happened. Someone slipped. Let's continue.
Okay. So here, this is interesting where there's all these pictures we ran across, of celebrities with Minister Louis Farrakhan. So that's his son, who I'm guessing might be in line to take his place. He has to be preparing somebody to be the leader. And is his name like Mustafa? It's something like that.
That's Kanye and Kim.
Yeah, so in this photo is Kanye West and Kim Kardashian and their daughter North at the time, pictured with Louis Farrakhan. And then we see him with, who is this? D1 Music. We'll know some of these rappers and some we won't. Another picture of him with Redman, LL Cool J, and Jermaine Dupri. And with Migos. I don't know who that is. With Papoose.
These are basically rap stars.
Yeah, so you just see him, like, look at this massive meeting. And we have P. Diddy, LL Cool J, what's his face? Ja Rule.
They're all connected. They're all part of the society. They're all friends.
Yes, they're all in some society that you and I are not in. Dougie Fresh, Fat Joe.
DMX.
Yeah, DMX. I mean, it's just crazy.
Well, he died mysteriously as well a few years ago. Or a year ago only. DMX is dead, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow. Yeah. Okay, that segues perfectly into, I started looking into like all these rap stars' murders, and here are just a few headlines in my Twitter thread. Ex-FBI agent fingers the Nation of Islam, the LAPD, and Biggie Smalls murder report, and he's saying like he had all of this information. The notorious B.I.G. was executed by a Nation of Islam hitman hired by Suge Knight, and LA cops covered up the crime. Carson said the suspected cover-up was the biggest miscarriage of justice in my 20-year career at the FBI. I had evidence that LAPD officers were involved, and I was shut down by the LAPD and city attorneys inside Los Angeles. Notorious B.I.G. was 24 when he was murdered and would have turned 49 last week. This was from a few years ago.
1989, I want to say. Something like that.
Is that what the... Oh, yeah. Or two... Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's like when you and I were listening to all this music. I remember all of this vividly. Then Tupac Shakur's record label received an anonymous call from someone threatening to finish him off after the rapper had been shot. And then if you listen to like interviews and read some of this, it says... There was a previous claim that the hit on Shakur was ordered by Sean Diddy Combs. And then it says, in response to the threat, Death Row posted security guards outside Shakur's hospital room, as did the Nation of Islam. And then another headline, Rebel Music, when hip-hop met Islam. And then,
do you think that that's a coincidence that only this kind of music genre is connected with all this stuff? Not the classic, not the pop songs even, but strictly rap or hip hop.
Yeah, to me, it just shows indication of a network, and what through like other investigations I'm a part of right now, I'm seeing that there's multiple networks. So it's not like there's this one and they're responsible for everything. It's like there's this one that is meant to control and grip a population of people, while you have a whole other network or secret society or shadow family, shadow government. I don't know because I can't see it.
What I'm saying is...
But yeah, go ahead.
So what I'm saying is only rap artists or hip hop artists are involved in all these horrendous criminal acts. For instance, so if they're blacks, right, African Americans. So if we take blacks African American culture, they are amazing at jazz music, blues, Ray Charles, all those Jimi Hendrix, etc. So they are not only singing rap. They didn't do that in the 70s to 60s to the 50s, right? And their music was amazing. Wow. But once the rap music occurred, I had one guy, so his name is David Trujillo. He was a gang member in the 80s. So he told me this thing that they weren't that evil and angry before the rap music occurred.
Wow.
He told me on the record that we didn't even know how to avenge our enemies. But then we saw movies, we heard the music, the lyrics, and we knew right away what to do.
Yes, and I've heard all of that was intentional.
Yes, so that's why I'm asking. That's definitely intentional.
I think everything is intentional. So I don't really believe in coincidences anymore. I think it's you're actually seeing things line up for the first time. That's how I would define a coincidence.
But do you have an answer? So for the last two evenings, we're watching this TV show called Fallout. It's about the 1950s and the American culture in the 50s. Okay. And it's a beautiful soundtrack over there. So music from the 50s, 40s to 60s, right? And the music was about love, about something that is higher than us, right?
Yes.
What happened that the humanity switched to singing and praising pussy, bitch, money, dollars, killings, rapes, and etc. Something has switched, something has happened. There is no way this is some kind of an evolution of the music industry. Something has been done on purpose.
Yeah. Well, wasn't Satan was a fallen angel, and wasn't that his gift?
He was responsible for music. But how so he waited for so long? So we've been listening to music, I want to say, let's say, for 100 of years once we had the records. Elvis, Ray Charles, all those amazing artists, right? But something has changed in the 80s that we started making music and praising this horrendous stuff, and people started listening to it.
Yeah. I think it's like there's frequencies, how like frequencies affect you. That's all intentional. And our minds are so powerful. And if anybody can affect our mind to project like negativity, then they've won. Like, because we're that powerful. So if we can like stay hopeful and believe and have faith and project like a world full of love and light and hope and goodness, then evil has lost. So I'd say it's just one tactic of many would be through music. So you have frequencies. And then I think that in terms of dialing up the intensity or the kind of climax of this war, we are living through it. So that's the answer. So the reason I think this evil has been here the whole time, it's just more in your face. And I also think we see the evil kind of be reckless and out of control as it's losing power.
It became kind of
less sophisticated.
Yeah, too prideful, I want to say. So it's been done step by step, right? So it started, I want to say, let's say AC/DC, right? Kind of a rock music, a little bit satanic, maybe more than a little bit. Then rap music right now we see on the stage as a pop stars, they're praising Satan blandly, like straight to your face, without even hiding.
Totally. It's like a ceremony.
And I think that's apex, that's the climax for sure. I don't think we can go higher than this.
I totally agree. And even like listening to worship artists as a Christian or like going to a Christian concert, I even think there's a little too much of that. Like you're up on a stage and I mean, worship artists can direct our heart towards God. That's when they're effective and amazing. But I think even down to that, it's been intentional to get our mind and our body like worshiping something other than our creator.
Yeah, and you have, so Europe does not have this thing called mega churches. You have mega churches, multiple right here.
Right.
And it's basically, I want to say, Tony Robbins 2.0, but they earn a lot of money. And they have nothing to do with God and Christianity.
Absolutely.
They're demonic.
Yes. And I think like the further you move away from accountability and you become kind of elevated, you become untouchable, you know, people make you an idol, you're in dangerous territory. So
maybe even without knowing it.
Yes.
They worship you. They praise you. Instead of praising God, they worship and praise you.
Yeah. And Christians are super naive. Like if Christians think that they haven't been duped, you've got another thing coming, sadly. That's been a part of my like kind of wake up process too, is seeing how even the church has been infiltrated. It's really sad.
There's this right now very famous book of Megan Basham. Did you read it?
No.
Shepherds for Sale. I haven't read it yet, but there's a movement right now, and she works for Daily Wire. She's a journalist, and she wrote this book, Shepherds for Sale, and she exposes the civil agenda, and she exposes how the churches were infiltrated and how the pastors were just being bought off by these multiple groups.
Yes.
Let's continue on P Diddy.
Okay, so we talked about music and the common connection. And are you able to like dub in this video? I really want to share it.
Yeah, sure.
Where you would. Okay, so I could play it for you, and then you could like overlay it if you want. This is the one I was talking about that. I'm just going to read really quickly what I wrote in my Substack. Below is a video that P. Diddy shared on his Instagram promoting the July 4th, 2020 message by Minister Farrakhan on Diddy's Revolt Network. The Nation of Islam is a labyrinth of individuals with a strongly held belief system, not just about God, but about our nation. Listen closely to the words of Minister Louis Farrakhan and his thoughts about America, who he says was doomed from its inception. Why do you want to get into something that is coming to an end? We are living in the time of the unraveling of this great nation. These words all promoted by Diddy during the height of chaos and trauma for our country. And I'm just going to play it.
So P Diddy is sharing this video being, I want to say, a billionaire, right?
Yes.
He has nothing in common with the black guys from the streets, like nothing. If he wanted to help those guys, his community, he would. But how did he?
Thank you for saying that. It's just like Oprah when she's like, you can donate to the Maui fires. I know you're all struggling Americans, but... And then it's the people who have more wealth than you and I may ever have that are telling us that they're living in oppression and bondage. Mm-hmm. And we need to, like, I'm not saying that nothing happened in America's past. I think we also don't know the full story. Mm-hmm. And I also think what was done could have been done by evil men and that had nothing to do with you or I. If that makes sense. Like another
100%, it has nothing to do with you and me.
Right. And yeah, so to have like people who are billionaires perpetuate this, it's like toxic. It's not healing. That's all I'm trying to say. I don't know what the exact message of healing is. I don't want to claim to know that. But this is not it.
But that happened. That's it. You can't change the history.
Yeah, and you and I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. It's like, at what point do you pick up and say, wow, we're all in this boat together and look what we have accessible to both of us. Mm. So you have this group is like perpetuating this lie that you live in change, you must avenge that, everyone is your enemy. Like, that's not a message from God. That's how I know it's not. And
the last video was Donald Trump holding the Bible.
Yeah, and then
just a coincidence.
Exactly. They plug that in to say he's your enemy. I mean, it's just so upside down, and yeah, it's crazy. Okay, so this is Mecca Williams. This interview is really great, where she says she says she was on the family management side of things for Mr. Combs, traveling the world with him, as well as having multiple contracts with his network, Revolt.
Great name, huh? Revolt.
Not a coincidence. Wow, I never even thought about that. Revolt.
Just call to action, basically.
It is. It is a call to action. Dang, you nailed that. Okay, what's interesting, if we're looking at this, she was at P Diddy's 50th birthday party. This is Mecca Williams. She was at his New Year's Eve party on Star Island, and that property. Oh, here's another weird coincidence. That property P Diddy sold this year. That is also right next to a port in Miami, and the person who owned it before P Diddy was I think former CEO of Sony Music. I forgot his name.
Mottola?
Yes, I think. Mm-hmm. Yes. And there's this whole issue with Michael Jackson and Sony fighting over the rights to his music, which is also just very odd. And that was like before his death. Mm-hmm. And like the rights, Michael Jackson had the biggest music catalog, I think, of anybody in the whole world. Like, he owned the Beatles, rights to the Beatles music, I believe. Don't know that. And so I actually wanted to share this today on my feed, but haven't gotten around to it, that this year, February of 2024, they sued his estate and they bought like the rights to his music for, my expression, pennies on the dollar, like bargain basement. So this is still going on even right now.
It basically generates, I want to say, billions a year.
Yes.
Just from royalties.
Yes.
So the guy was destroyed, and I believe someone is going to do a deep dive into Michael Jackson's story, because there's so much to uncover.
Yes.
The guy was painted as a pedophile, which I believe he wasn't.
Right.
And he was a bad guy, and he was basically killed, and it was proven that he was killed by his doctor, and those amazing people were around him.
Right. Very amazing. Exactly. So hopefully, like, all of these things will just be, this isn't the full story, but I just hope and pray this can be leads that will lead to all kinds of other like tips for people who are investigating these things still to look into this and be aware of these individuals. Yeah, and so then I show the map. This is where I just was. I drove by the Sunset Masonic Lodge. This is in LA County, and I'm showing a map of the coastline. On the map, what's interesting when I put this together, it said it's like 2 miles away, and there's the Queen Mary and everything. In my car, it took me 5 minutes. So from this exit, you could actually see some of the cranes in the port. It is right there. That is very suspicious to me. And then this just goes into the lodge. And then I talk about like Freemason police. And there's a story of in 2015, 3 individuals. One was an aide to California Attorney General Kamala Harris at the time, who were arrested for posing as police officers. And then just to like show the legitimacy of that was shared by CBS News. And then
they were acting like cops.
Yeah. And so there are like secret police societies, which I never knew about. And
one of them was an aide to Kamala.
Interesting. She spoke at, so there's something called the Black Boule, and people should investigate that. And like she has videos of her at like a women's boule that she's speaking as a part of. Okay, so then my next little post is from Allie Carter, who is a child sex trafficking survivor. And she did an interview in 2021 where she actually talks about the Freemason police in Riverside County. And she was abused at one of P Diddy's parties. And she talks about the corruption within a police department, allegedly, that she was a part of or victim of. So that's kind of tying all that overlapping. And then I have a section on Freemasons and the Nation of Islam. This comes from articles the Nation of Islam has shared on their own website. So I just pull things that they've said and I show you. And then this is where it gets super interesting, in my opinion, if it hasn't been interesting enough already. The history of the San Diego border parcel. When we look at the ownership before Dior Sunset Foundation and, Faheem via the media saying he owns it, we learn about these other families that are very suspect, in my opinion. And one is the Birney family. And so Ralph Birney came from Jordan, the country of Jordan, in maybe the 60s. And he was a real estate investor, and his daughter-in-law took over all of his businesses. And if you look up in San Diego County Public Records, there's like a gazillion trusts and businesses and LLCs all under their name. And they tossed this ownership back and forth between their various trusts through the years. And again, this is the parcel that is owned currently by Dior Sunset Foundation and where you can illegally cross into our border very easily. That's what we're talking about. When we look into them, we see they also have ties to the Middle East, and they also have connections with the International Rescue Committee, which if you look at their like national gross income, it's over $1 billion. It's like $1.4 billion as a nonprofit helping immigrants in America. So it's the place you go if you need relocation assistance and all kinds of support, if you could say. So I find it very interesting that people who own border property are also involved with helping people once they cross through an organization.
It's like owning a poisonous food company and owning a pharmacy.
Yeah.
You create a problem, you solve the problem.
Yeah, you get to make money off of selling the food, and then you get to make money off of helping the cure.
I believe there is a guy called Roberto New guy. He will help America with solving this problem.
Yes, there we go. I can't wait for
That's going to be an amazing movie, right? A TV show.
Oh my gosh.
4 years of almost saying nonstop every day. A new episode comes out. Yes. A drama, maybe some kind of a comedy. We'll see.
Oh,
what a time to live in.
Truly. Yes, truly. So anyways, that's probably enough of that, because I don't want to say anything about this family that would not be true, or, but it's just some interesting things.
And they can find everything on your Substack.
Yes.
Link in the description, guys.
Yes, exactly. So that's about it.
So if we take some evil stuff that is going on in the world, especially here in America, right? So we can definitely trace something that is coming from the Marxists, from the communists, right? From the 19th century, from the 20th century. We have this. Then we have these CIA operations. We have the 1960s hippie movement, right, where they basically demolished the modern society of that age. We have everything that is going on right now with the P Diddy. Before that, for decades, Epstein was, and there is information that he was a CIA or a Mossad agent, right?
Yeah.
Do you think all these are separate, or do they have something in common, and they come from one place?
With full certainty, they are related.
Related to what? If we were not, let's not take the devil, the Satan, right? The evil.
Right.
But what are they related to?
So it's a long play game to destroy humanity, which I know sounds dramatic. But if you look at like what they've done through COVID, it becomes very obvious. And like our food, our poisoned environments, the vaccines, all of that, and how those have ramped up. So it's a war on humanity in America. I believe, and I want to say this narcissistically, is the last line of defense to that. And if we fall, that's it.
I can confirm that by being a European, because the Europe watches what's happening in the US, especially the smaller countries just like mine, Lithuania, and everything that you do here, we implement this in 5 to 10 years, maybe a little bit faster in the modern days. But if you fail here, the Europe is going to fail big time right away, and my country is going to fail for 100%. But I would even argue that right now Europe is a bigger mess than the US, because they don't have the guns. They have a huge immigration problem just like you do, but they're not willing to solve it, I want to say. They're solving it. I want to say Germany right now is closing the borders. Italy is getting less and less illegal immigrants from Africa, and the same goes with, I want to say, France and the Netherlands. But still, the UK is done. As far as I know, they're messed up big time with all their policies. They're taking people to prison just for hateful comments on Facebook and on other social media. But the US is definitely the last beacon. But I have always this kind of a problem with the US, meaning if we let's take Russia or China, and I know what's happening in Russia just because I speak Russian language, so I understand their language, I know their culture. So there isn't a thing in Russia for sure. Of course, there are some, maybe there are some pedophile rings in Russia because the country is vast, right? It's a big country, 140 million population, but it's not as big as here. There are not so many scandals just like here. I want to say nothing like that happens in China. Nothing like that happens, I want to say, in India. And those are big countries, right? Why the US? It seems like, and it feels like the United States of America have something that the evil wants. And what that something is, I believe that's just people, the citizen of the US. Why? I have no idea. They're just basically fighting for our souls.
Yeah, that sounds right. And I don't know either. I know the US is like the #1 consumer of child pornography and trafficking, and that has surpassed in profit gun arms, I didn't say that right. Drug trafficking and then arms trafficking, which would be like weapons. So I don't know.
But do you think that we have this information that, for instance, in the US, the multiple pedophile rings, we know that because of the people just like you that shed the light to the problem, and for instance, in other countries, in Arabic countries, or in China or other countries, it's being put under the rug, or in Russia because that would be a huge scandal, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that's because of the independent journalists?
Yes. Okay, I'm thinking about a few things. I definitely think that. I think we still have our freedom of speech, but barely. A little bit. It's a little bit of an illusion. Like I said, I say that, but I'm like, who am I kidding? But
no one goes to prison just like in the UK.
Yeah.
In the UK, you go to prison for Facebook comments or posts.
Right.
If you don't like the illegal immigrants, you can go to prison.
Yes.
Literally.
Right. I think we outnumber. What we have going for us in America is we outnumber whatever is against us. But at the same time, I think there's been like a dormant corruption here since the middle of our existence as the United States. Like, I think we came here. So my thoughts when I kind of look back through history and what has happened is, like, we fought for our independence and we started to get it, but whatever this evil is, it followed us here. And then World War II, I don't think we actually won that. I think the rats scattered and we got a lot of the rats here. Infiltrated, and they took over, like our university systems. And you can see, like, if you look into the Frankfurt School, and that was shut down. And then,
what is that?
Well, this is my problem. I only know a little bit about things where I can see a high level how it happened, but to drill down and tell you exactly names and what happened, I couldn't do that. I just know that school was shut down. I think it's in Germany. And a lot of the people came and became professors here in the United States. And that's why you see when our kids go off to college at some universities, they get radicalized. And so it's like, if you capture the minds of the children, you can destroy the country. Again, it's the long play.
But they've been being radicalized by communists, socialists.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So socialism is extreme left, and fascism, Nazis were extreme right, but they end up in the middle with the horseshoe. So you're saying that this is the same thing, kind of?
Yes, I think it's all smoke and mirrors. Like, at the end of the day, everybody that's bad wants power and is motivated by evil, and there's no way they have the same soul you and I do. Or they probably don't have a soul. I don't know.
But for instance, there are multiple artists that claim on the record that they sold the soul to the devil, and no one believes them. It's like, you're joking, right? That's a joke. Haha, he's an idiot. What a joke.
I used to think it was a joke, and now I know.
Yes, a few years ago.
They are telling
the truth.
They are telling the truth, and they're telling you, it's all, yeah. Like, I know the first half of this interview, I said everything was hidden. But also, a lot is hidden in plain sight, where they're very forthright. Yes, where they tell you exactly what they're going to do. I mean, that's what Hollywood is.
Do you think America is modern Babylon?
Yes.
Is going to fall?
I think Babylon is falling, and there is like a rebirth happening. Years ago, or maybe 2 years ago, I wouldn't have said that. But, in the Bible where God is asked, like, if there are a few righteous people in the city, would you spare it? Mm-hmm. And he says yes. And I don't want to over spiritualize anything, but I think people have been crying spiritual. Out. Yes. And they've said, like, I want to change. And I see that I am a part of this problem and I refuse to be a part of this problem anymore. And I don't want to live in a nation of debauchery. And I don't want to live in a nation where criminals run free. And that is actually the only reason I'm talking to you. I was very nervous to bring this information in front of a camera. But at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, to say, this is our land. This is God's land. We're not going to hand it over to some sick, evil people to have your disgusting playtime and have this be the most corrupt playground you've ever heard of. Like, this ends. I'm not going to be a part of it. And if that means I have to expose your sorry behind and be a little nervous for my safety, that's what's required of this time. And if I could just speak to people listening and say, you have what is needed right now. So like, that doesn't mean you have to come and get on a podcast or write an article or be in front of a video. Like, anybody who wants a better future for their kids or a saved nation, you literally have what it takes. It is everybody's gifting that needs to be brought to the table, and everybody's uniquely gifted. So we don't need a million podcasters. We need people who are good at all kinds of different things. And if we come together, I think like we're going to see our way out.
Yeah, and thanks to Elon Musk, you can share your thoughts on X right now.
Yes, thank you, Elon.
That's what I was asking a pastor of mine. I was asking whether we as a humanity, all of us, we will be judged by the deeds of our communities. And he said, yes. So that's why we have to do our job. We have to, first of all, believe in God. And I like this picture. If you want to become radical, just go to church with your family.
It's so true.
That's the most radical thing you can do right now. Just go to church, nothing else. Spend time with your family.
Right.
And we have to do our part, and we have to speak up. We have to be brave. We have to make these stories being told, and for people to make their own research.
Yes.
Maybe you don't want to share it with anyone else. Share it with your family members, but do your research.
Yes.
Why this guy owns this property? Where are 300,000 plus children? Why are they missing? What does it mean? We just can't acknowledge it. 300,000 kids missing. What does it mean? And if this amount of kids are missing, how many of child offenders there are?
Ew, exactly.
How many of them? If there is such a big market,
right? And
the product is here, 3,000, minimum 300,000 children, then how many consumers there are?
Exactly.
It's sickening.
It's disgusting.
It's disgusting.
I cannot even comprehend it. It's so vile and disgusting. Ugh. Like, what is wrong with you that you would ever consider that? Ugh. It's awful.
What are you most hopeful right now about?
Well, I am elated that Donald Trump is going to be at the helm, and all of you are going down.
All of you sick bastards.
You are going down, and I am just going to sit back and I'm going to praise God, and I'm going to say thank you that this man endured slandering, assassination attempts. He did not give up on us. He did not give up on our country. He did not give up on somebody like me who used to think he was sleazy because I was under the influence of propaganda. And we together are going to cleanse our land.
I believe I want to say not humanity, but Americans, you starve for justice, right? It's been for decades where there was no justice served.
Right.
It has to be served. At least we have to see the Epstein list, and all the people that were responsible. They have to get to justice. Minimum. P Diddy, it has to be public as well. We have to know the truth. JFK, 60 plus years ago, 61 years ago, right? We have to know the truth. Because this is the only hope that this community, as called the United States of America, can thrive.
Yes.
We have to see that the trials are just, and people that are responsible for the crimes, they're being convicted and they're being served the justice.
I totally agree. And this is such a short like term, like 4 years is nothing to endure. But we did endure as a populace the last 4 years, which have been absolute hell. And so I think the people do need to demand that justice. I think it's time we say, I want to see criminals prosecuted. I want to know what they did publicly. I deserve to do it. My money paid for it. It's the least that you can do. And to say we want to see it quick and fast and swift from our government.
Well, I believe Donald Trump can, with this, him having the White House and the Senate and the House of Representatives, he can set up a movement of justice, right? You do crime, you go to jail. Not what was happening here in California for the last 4 years with the George Gascon, right? You do crime, you can do whatever you want. You're being just let out of the police station. So I believe the movement can be started right now, and in the next 4 years we can see big changes. And I believe, I'm going to repeat myself, that Americans are just starving for that.
Yes.
On my podcast, I always have the same question. So let's have two assumptions with you. Assumption number one: the president of the United States, especially right now, well, since January 21st, 2025, it's definitely it. The president of the United States is the most powerful human being on planet Earth. Let's have another assumption with you. You become one. You become the president of the US. And once you do so, you have this Secret Service, for instance, at your disposal, and they tell you, we know all the answers in the world, right? Mrs. President, we love you, we respect you, you're our president. We as a Secret Service, we know everything. You ask us, we give you an honest answer.
No way.
What would be your first question?
Oh my gosh, that is such a cool question.
Thank you.
Whoa. Okay. I think right now it would probably be California related. And this is such... Okay, I think it's so big. Maybe I would say, like, how many groups are working to take down this state? Or how long has this state been captured? How many groups are working together to take it down, and, like, who's at the head and why? Like, I want to know everything.
Once they give you the answer, would you expose it as a president to the public?
Heck yes. I wouldn't waste any time.
People can handle the truth?
Yes, they have to. It's time that they have their face put in the poop. That's what I'm so sick of, is people walking around not even caring to know how bad this has gotten. Like, you're going to have to smell it. It's time. And
lots of people are going to have a meltdown, just like they have right now with Trump being elected to president, right?
Yeah.
So people can handle the truth?
They're going to have to. It's time to put on your big boy pants, and it's time to face the truth. It's not going to be pretty, and we're going to need a lot of people in place for healing. And I think we all have no idea what we've been living under, and we all need healing. It's a God-shaped problem, but I think a lot of good people are going to need to step up over the next few years and be there to be that love and hope that has been missing.
What's the number one thing that you would like for other independent journalists to dig deeper right now? What's the topic?
Oh, okay. I would say stay local. If everybody focuses on their local community and corruption, you'll be a little more efficient. And there's like low-level crime happening. Low-level governments are allowing like so much laundering of money. Look into who owns the land. Whatever's questionable, like start digging into ownership and state and city contracts. It'll paint a very vivid picture.
Just to take a mop and just to wipe all the evil out of your own house at first.
That's right.
Melissa, thank you for accepting my invitation to do this podcast. I believe that people are going to love your Substack, especially everything that we've covered. So they're going to see all the pictures, all the videos, and all the text on your Substack. Guys, follow Melissa on X, on Twitter. And what are the plans for the future? What are we going to see from you in the nearest future?
Well, I could not have predicted being a part of this, so I don't think I could tell you what the future holds because I tend to go where the current takes me, and I think it's going to be like exposing more of this type of corruption and lies. Like my little tagline is "Let's stand against the lies to end this war," because that could be big or small. So we're running across even more lies. So more to come.
And we don't know what we don't know, right?
Until
we have
you
no
start
idea,
looking.
like,
Exactly.
how corrupt, how bad it is.
Yeah. I have someone I know and love dearly that's close to me that says, what are you, like, why are you doing this? Or what is your plan? Or what are you hoping to accomplish? And this will be in the middle of an investigation. It's like, I don't know until I find what needs to be told.
Amen. Amen to that. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. God bless you too.
From the bottom of my heart, I would like to thank you for watching this whole episode. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already. Leave a comment below and share this episode with your friends, peers, and loved ones. May God, Jesus Christ, bless you and your whole family.